Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zoom into Wine. It's time for the show and your host, Ian Blackburn.
All right, we are live on Facebook and ready for another adventure with our night of Truffles and Barolo with my good friend Silvio De Silvio. How are you, buddy?
Buonasera. I'm sorry, I was trying to get to unmute myself. How's everybody?
Good to see you, my friend. Silvio and I have worked in the wine industry together for a long time, sometimes under the same company, and sometimes Silvio went off and worked for the Italian guys. But Silvio, where in Italy are you from, buddy?
I'm from Padua, which is just 20 minutes east of Venice.
Okay.
It's a town that is known for the university. We just celebrated 800 years. It's the second oldest university in the world. Yeah.
I'm zooming from home tonight, so I could actually make the dish. I just want to tell you, people that are busy can even make this in like 10 minutes. This is like the easiest thing in the world to make. The pasta, everybody got a little pasta, Silvio? A little bit of a thicker spaghetti. It's made in Italy. It's a part of our Italian catalog that we have on our website. Some really nice goods. Everyone got a little truffle butter, which I plan to put right here so I could grab it and show you, but it's 15 feet away now. I can't get up. And you just take the truffle butter, you mix it with the pasta, you shave the truffle on there, and it looks good. I was told you've really, when you're taking the pasta from the pan, I don't know if you saw the video, guys, but you have to fork the pasta. That's what he said. I'm like, what? I had to listen to that carefully.
Buon appetito.
How about? You never get too much truffle.
Not such a thing.
No, but I'm so excited, Silvio. I'm actually hours away now from getting on my plane to Italy. We're going to be taking a group starting this Sunday through the region of Barolo, and it's truffle season there now. These truffles got flown in from Piedmont, the white truffles, and the black truffles, which are sizable, and they were impressive black truffles this year. They're from Tuscany. The white truffle crop this year is 2-3 times more expensive than ever before. Quite an expensive harvest. I'm not sure how COVID is involved in that. Maybe the truffle dogs didn't want to take their masks off, but couldn't get enough truffle this year. Do you know anything about that, Silvio?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because when you have a good vintage of Barolo, you have a bad vintage of truffles, and vice versa. So that should be used as a rule of thumb. Reason being is that truffles love humidity, so you need a lot of rain to get the right climate into the soil. And if you don't get enough rains, then you don't get much truffle. Truffles is a mushroom, and as you all know, it needs humidity to grow, and only grows in the most humid areas. It's very hard to well, obviously, first you cannot really artificially farm truffle.
There's some people that are trying to change that, especially here in California. I'm not sure if you're aware, but
I heard
the team behind Kendall Jackson is making some progress, and they're pretty sure they're going to be making some California truffles pretty soon.
Good luck to them. We'll see how they taste, right?
All right, yeah, we'll see.
Because truffle, like wine, really needs to be in a specific soil. That's why you cannot find white truffle from Alba, let's say in Umbria, as much as you cannot find Barolo in Sicily. So it's one of those very unique experience that nature give us. Is a gift from the environment, and you can't really control that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to just go through a couple of slides, Silvio, and then we'll taste it. Oh, in fact, why don't we start tasting a little bit of wine right now? We got the Arnese in the glass, and we want to get to the Barolo. So while I'm talking about truffles, let's get our nose going on. And I think the truffle pasta and the Arnese is also a perfect way to go. I'm using my super glass tonight. I like putting Pinots, Burgundies, and Barolos in these beautiful big bad boys. So I'm prepping it with the Arnese. I will tell you too, in preparation for this trip, I've been on a fast, dropped about 15 pounds so far. Haven't eaten a carb in weeks. That bite of pasta was the first carb I've put in my mouth. I mean, you know, legitimately a few carbs sneak in every day, but no bread, no pasta, no rice, no nothing fun, no potato, and no wine. So that glass of Arnese is singing to me right now. So pretty, so floral. What do you get in that the nose of that wine, Silvio?
Well, one of the things that I always find in Piemontese wines is flowers. You will see this in the whites and the reds. I found a lot of white flowers here. There is also some hints of what do you call it? The skin of the apple, the green apple.
Okay.
You know, when you smell the green apple, not the red apples. I get that. Maybe some hint of pears,
apples. Yeah, floral. I sometimes get a little bit, not as much in this Arnese, but sometimes almost like a black licorice or
yeah, that's a good call. Yes.
Yeah.
But you know, once again, it's wine is a very subjective experience. So one of the things I hate to hear when I go to tasting rooms is people telling me what I should smell. I mean, you know, what I smell is what I smell. What you guys smell is what you guys smell. I can give you some, ideas, some food for thought about what you think, and it's. I think that I would stick with the flowers, white flowers, and I would say the apples are, to me, the most distinctive flavor in the wine.
Yeah, I like that apple skin, like you said. As we were also talking about the truffle, you know, it goes back about 4,000 years. There's notes about it being, you know, referred to as a tuber, and then the Renaissance. You know, I think like everything great was celebrated in the Renaissance. I think if I were to pick a period I'd like to visit in time, I'd like to visit the Renaissance. They were living large back then and celebrating all things hedonistic, and truffles became a thing definitely in the Renaissance, but really became a bigger part of the world in the 1900s. And this guy, he's the godfather of truffles, Giacomo Mora, 1929. He, I mean, look at that truffle. Come on, that thing is talk about never getting enough truffle. Maybe you can get enough truffle. That thing would be $1 million truffle today. What do you think there, Silvio?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Those big ones go on auction for crazy amounts of money. It's just like let's see who will drop the most money for a big truffle. It's kind of the game they play.
Yeah, even though I have to say that size, as we always like to say, doesn't really matter. It's more about the intensity of the flavor. So you may get a huge truffle, doesn't mean that you're gonna get a nice truffle. So sometimes the size does not it's not a true representation of the quality of the truffle. So that's something that I always warn people about. That applies to a lot of other things, obviously, especially fruit and vegetables, So I think when you deal with truffle, and I'm very curious to hear from you, Ian, when you come back from your trip, is really the hunter, because hunters are very, very jealous about their hunting places. They don't share with anybody. The only other being that is aware of that place is the dog, and pretty much it. They will not share with their friends, and they're very they hunt in solitude, because obviously the moment you find the so-called gold mine of truffle, you want to keep it for yourself, because
Right.
that gold mine keeps reproducing truffles every single year. And if the site is very conducive for high quality truffle, you want to make sure that nobody finds it. So that's why they're very jealous of their.
Sure. Yeah, the guy that's taking us on a tour has written a couple of books on truffles, and in fact, as we look here, we're going to go forward. We will be hunting for some white truffles. That's what I was using tonight, shaved into. This is all we got left here, but they smell amazing. I think my dish would benefit from a little bit of salt and pepper. I definitely put some pepper on it, but a little bit more, and a little bit more salt on my dish. You can't over salt it, but might even play around with a little olive oil just to kind of kick things up, get a little bit more brightness. But I'd love to hear from you folks if you've been eating the truffle. Maybe you had the black or the white. Maybe some of you got both. Do you have any preferences or comments about how your truffle is? Teresa, did we send you truffle today?
Yeah, I got the black truffle.
You got the black, and how's it treating you?
Pretty well. Yeah, I didn't cook the noodles long enough because I was rushing because by the time it came and stuff. But so far so good.
What time did your delivery arrive tonight, Teresa?
About
Just curious.
6:20.
Wow, that poor guy, man. He left our place at 10.
Yeah, and he still had to go to Pasadena and Sierra Madre, he said.
Wow.
But,
Well, traffic wasn't that bad today. I don't know why. He didn't even tell me. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Usually
No,
by
I
5 o'clock.
think Channel 4 was doing, because they send a guy down to LAX, but the traffic coming up to 405 this way was pretty bad. So
I can imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially as you approach 6 o'clock.
Exactly. But I've cut myself on that little truffle shaver, so clearly I'm a klutz.
Yeah, that is a weapon. I did warn you about that in the email too. Be careful, especially if you're drinking wine.
I hadn't even started yet.
I will tell you too, my truffle shaving technique was not very positive either. I made like little teeny things. I think you have to really play with it right to get these beautiful thin slices.
And you didn't cut yourself.
How do you guys do? Anybody do well?
Well,
Lynn, yours turned out well?
Ours turned out fabulous, and we added truffle salt.
Okay, there you go.
Over
Truffle salt, we'll kick it up.
Yeah. Need a little salt is fantastic. My first experience with a shaver, and we took no prisoners. It's all good.
All right. Hey, Tiffany, you guys look proud of your plates. Let's see those babies. Come on. All right.
We just finished. We haven't tasted it yet. Looks so good. We watched the video. It was so great. So excited.
Awesome.
I made it wrong the whole time. I didn't wait for it to boil right. I didn't put the salt in at the right time before. So now I learned. It's great.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of good lessons you can pick up from the Italians.
Fantastic.
Thank you guys. Enjoy. Manja. Renita, are you out there? I see a table. But maybe you're in there making your pasta. But hope you got your truffles okay. Everything's in good shape.
Back and forth.
All right.
So how long do truffles keep? By the way?
Not long. In fact, these literally landed at LAX on Friday. They got them to me Friday afternoon. They weren't supposed to arrive until Saturday, but they had to consolidate the order. I was just happy to get them. So 10 days from Friday is really the rule, the 10 days of the truffle life. So I would find excuses throughout this weekend to put them to work.
Gotcha.
Honestly, the thing that I think will taste the best at home, if you're not a Michelin star restaurant, scrambled eggs with truffle. It's absolutely a no-brainer, and it's so good.
Yeah, I'm a -10 Michelin star restaurant here.
-10. Michelin minus star.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, my friend Van, I think, is on here. Van is kind of a Michelin star dude. You know, he's from Georgia, but I'd give him some Michelin stars. How's it going at Van Tuck's Kitchen? I see his friend is sitting in front of the TV there. Van, are you cooking? He's busy cooking. His wife picked up oh, there we go. Van turns it into an event. He's got people at his house, and I'm sure this he's got all the pasta. He bought the white and the black, and he's got plans for a bigger thing. You are muted, Van, not on my side, but on your side if you want to unmute. But I'm glad you guys are having fun with it. A lot of people think of truffles and the hogs or the pigs, but today it's the dogs. Hi. Hey guys.
Antonori in the house.
Yeah, we got Antonori in the house, and we got. Where are you guys at in your cooking process, man?
Anyway, guys, we're in the middle of trying to get the pasta boiled. I was gonna have the truffle dish kind of launch right around the time that the reds came through, but at the same time, the whites are just as good.
Yeah, well, it's a full experience. We start there. We're going to get into the reds here in a second.
The wines are fabulous, by the way.
Yes,
they really are.
So much.
Decanted, then put back in bottle, then put back in decanter, and all the good things we have to do in a single day to make sure that they get the oxygen that they need. But guys, thank you so much. This is wonderful. And we've got my wife Jillian and her brother Jeremy. This is first
Jeremy.
Get on it.
Yeah, my brother's in the military, so
all right.
He's here for Thanksgiving.
Hey, Jeremy, thank you so much, buddy. Thank you
Cheers,
for all you do, buddy. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Jillian, you're looking good, bud. I can't wait to hang out with you guys soon.
Yes, likewise. We're excited for this truffle pasta too.
All right. Well, here we got the truffle dogs that are really in charge of the truffle business now. A good truffle dog is a really important tool to the trade. The pigs would go in and start to bite into the truffles. You couldn't train them not to eat the truffles. They had to pull them back, get them off the truffles. And so too many losses from the pigs. So they moved to the dogs, which are a little healthier, and they do not bite into the truffles. They find the truffles and get a reward, and they're happy about that. So it's a truffle dog world. And Anthony Bourdain makes it a point to talk about truffle oil is not truffles. Now, I'm sure a lot of us have truffle oil, but there's things that sommeliers say never to do, and there are things that chefs say never to do. And I've never met an Italian chef that will use truffle oil. So just keep that in mind. So here's an article that came out recently about the crazy white truffle prices of this year and the prices. And I did send you guys a link today in the email that gave you a little Black Friday sale from not the company I worked with to buy these truffles, but a big truffle company. And they're having a Black Friday sale. So it's kind of coming to the end of the season. And maybe these high prices create an opportunity as it's time to sell all these truffles. So the prices that they came out with today are lower than when I bought ours at wholesale. So let's take a look at that link and be on the lookout for Black Friday truffle sales. Next year I'll know, maybe we'll plan to buy our truffles for the event in Black Friday. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about how the prices of truffles really went up high this year. And as far as storage, there's a lot of ways to keep truffle. A lot of people have ideas. When you travel or you're smuggling truffles out of Italy, I've heard it's good to put it in like a coffee can with some risotto. That way you get the benefit of exposing the risotto rice to the truffle aromas while you're transporting them. But in your refrigerator, take your truffle, wrap it with a paper towel, and change it out every day. And that's how you keep a truffle in its best shape. You don't want them to get wet. You don't want them to stay too moist. You want them to stay pretty dry. Otherwise, they can start to rot and mold. So you don't want any of that. I put mine in a little cardboard box if you have one. If you don't, wrap it with some plastic wrap. But it will make your kitchens and your refrigerator smell like truffle. That's a guarantee. Even a little bit will do that. If you want to, Teresa, here's a good idea. Let's say you want to use your truffle and you don't have plans for this weekend to do it. You can make some truffle butter on your own, or find a way to make some products with the truffle and refrigerate it. But truffle butter will age very well for a very long time. So you could shave the rest of your truffle into some melted butter, let it dry back up, and put it right in the fridge. That would be a good way to extend the life of your truffle. All right, Silvio, you ready to talk about some Barolo? And we do talk a little bit about the white wine in this video too, but let's get into our video about the wines. We did because right now it's about 3 a.m. Last year we were all sitting at home a lot, and Daniele Conterno woke up at 3 or 4 in the morning, I guess it is now, and went on the Zoom with us. We got the vice president of international marketing, and he was not going to be waking up at 4 in the morning for us to do that. So I went on and taped a little tasting conversation with him. So get ready for that now. Oh, let's see why we started way out there. There we go.
No.
Can you hear that?
I can hear you. I can't hear the video.
Cannot hear the video.
Nope.
Okay, let's see if I can hear it here myself.
How about now?
Ladies and
Oh,
gentlemen,
we can.
Yes.
welcome to Zoom into Wine. It's time for the show and your host, Ian Blackburn. Hello, Mr. Baldy. Manuel.
Ian, can you turn up the volume?
trying. Hopefully you can hear that okay.
Are you sitting at the winery right now? And it is. I'm invited to learn a lot about. As you know, Barolo is a 100 years old winery based in Alba, which is the Roman settlement. So, founded by the Romans. So there are still some houses, some restaurants, which are still built on Roman walls. And it's also famous for being the capital of white truffle. White truffle festival is on these days. And all the restaurants are showing their classic dishes like the tallarines or the egg noodles.
With white truffle, the sunny side up fried eggs with truffle, and many other things. But at the end, I always like it with very simple dishes.
Fantastic.
So I think the most important dates, if you look back at Pronotto history, is 1904 is when Pronotto was founded. Alfredo Pronotto was the founder. And together with his wife, he ran the company up until 1956. And then Beppe Colla, the winemaker, took over. And he was the one responsible for doing something which was very, very important, not only for Pronotto, but for the whole Barolo and Langhe region, which was after a trip in Burgundy, together with a prominent wine journalist, Veronelli. They came back from Burgundy and said, you know what, we are making great wines, but we are not saying where this wine comes from. So they really started the tradition of labeling single vineyards Barolo and Barbera, and Barbaresco, of course, later on. So in 1961, the first Barolo single vineyard was made, and that was Barolo Mussia, and also the first Barbera, which was Pian Romualdo. Another very crucial date is 1989, when the Antinori family took over. Is a family that takes care of the wine business since more than 26 generations and 600 years. And they really understood the importance of controlling the production from the very beginning. So while Pronotto produced great wine since the beginning of the last century, but was buying grapes, they understood the importance of buying land. So today Pronotto owns more than 70 hectares. And in Barolo, in Barbaresco, in Agliano, Nizza subzone, and those are the places where you can produce the best quality grape, which will help you to produce the best quality wines. Just before we get into the wines, it will be interesting to look at where we are. We are in Piemonte, and Piedmont means at the feet of the mountains. And I always say it's a very unique microclimate because that creates the Alps surrounding the region of Langhe. It's a little bit like a fridge because you have all the snow caps on top of the Alps. That's really important, especially in the last weeks before harvest, from September onwards. The excursion between night and day temperature is crucial to ripen the aromatics of Barolo and Barbaresco. And Nebbiolo is a grape varietal which is rooted in this region since 700 years, so really adapted to that soil and benefit from the discussion between night and day to really release all its aromatics. Nebbiolo is not a lot about fruit like Barbera or Dolcetto, rather about flowers. So very floral character, roses, violets, and spices. And Nebbiolo, the name comes from nebbia, so fog, and because that is the situation. That's exactly what happens during harvest. The fog is in the morning, while in the afternoon you have sunny days. So cool mornings, sunny afternoon. Cool mornings, sunny afternoon. And that's really what makes Piemonte and Langhe very special and capable of producing Nebbiolo of such a high quality that nowhere else in the world you can have the same expressions.
I love the picturesque hillsides and and in late November it'll look a lot like this as harvest is over, and the snow kind of comes and goes. You'll wake up one morning and it's snow everywhere, and 2 days later it's gone. But such a beautiful zone, and you can just imagine how why the wines are so beautiful and so detailed. There's no place in the world like this region.
You're lucky. It's a very beautiful place. I particularly love this picture because it tells you a few things. Well, the small village that you see in the middle of the picture is actually Busia hamlet. So it's where Pronotto winery is, and that's the winery where we produce Busia and Vigna Colonnello, so our top Barolos. This snow-free amphitheater-shaped vineyard is the Busia vineyard, which is considered a Grand Cru. And I particularly like the fact that you see in the back the Monviso, so the Alps. That's the border between France and Italy, and you see how what we were just discussing before, the excursion between night and day, how close the mountains are. And also, this is a picture that it could be absolutely taken in November, but actually was taken in March. And this is when exactly before GPS, before soil analysis would be sort of standard technology nowadays. That was the time when the producer from the area would normally buy and sell land, because this is a time where you can see the best exposed vineyards, the ones that are snow-free, and the ones that are best drained. And also you see in the back the small village and the castle of Barolo. So you see how close, how small the area of Barolo is. And Busia is only less than 1 kilometer away from the Barolo village. So really in the heart of the Barolo appellation.
Beautiful.
When it comes to soil, it is really a geological puzzle, Langhe. We will look later on at some pictures, and they really show the geological sort of nature of Langhe, and particularly of Barolo. Within Barolo, you go from 6 million years old soil to 12 million years old soil. So sometimes just walking from one hill to the other, actually you're traveling in geological history 1 million of years each time. So it's very rich in marl, so compressed clay, sand and loam, of course. And the varying composition of sand and clay will change very much Nebbiolo, which is a very transparent grape varietals. It really reflects the soil it's rooted onto. And that's the reason why Barolo was chosen as an appellation in the 60s to tell this region apart from the rest of the region, which also produces Nebbiolo, and later in 1980 granted the DOCG status. It has a very special soil. It is a very unique area of a little bit more than 1,000 hectares and made up of 11 council. You have the Barolo, Monforte, Castiglionfalletto, Serralunga, La Morra, and a part, a few others, Novello, Verduno, among the most important. But every single village, every single council had a slightly different character. So you really move, like in Burgundy, from one village to the other, and Nebbiolo will reflect the soil it's grown onto. More tannic. Normally, Barolo will be more tannic on the clay-rich soil, more perfumed, softer tannins on the sand-rich soils. And this is exactly what we were talking about. So you see the geological map of Barolo, and you see there is a green and yellow part and a more orange, dark orange, almost red part. And in between there is this line, dotted line, that really divides the region into two. And the youngest soils are called Tortoniano soils, characterized by what it's called blue marl. So a special marl which tends to have this sort of grayish bluish character. And on the other side you have the Serravalliano soil, which is subdivided into soil characterized by the Marne di Diano, particularly Monforte and Castiglionfalletto area, and Formazione di Lequio, the area in Serralunga. So, as I said before, the younger soils, La Morra and Barolo, produces Barolo that have more finesse, more perfumes, and less tannic structure. The more you go east and south, and the more you end up with wines which have lots of power, lots of richness, and lots of tannic structure. So Busia is actually sort of in the middle of this appellation. So I always like to say that it was chosen as a Grand Cru because, and the first Cru of Barolo, because it expresses the two souls of Barolo. Still, the elegance, the finesse, the perfumes of La Morra and Barolo, but already starting to anticipate the richness, the structure, the body, and the aging potential of the older soils. And I think here is just really, the question is, what is the difference then between Barolo and Barbaresco? There are some legal requirements that are different from one another. Barbaresco sits on soils which are very similar to the younger soils of Barolo. So Marne di Sant'Agata, so sandier soils, which means Barbaresco are normally more perfumed, more fragrant, and they need less time in age in barrel to soften its tannins. While Barolo, of course, because it has more tannins, harsh tannins, it needs a little bit more time. And of course, that will be even longer time for the Barolo Riserva and for the Barbaresco Riserva. It doesn't mean that the requirements in oak is different. So the minimum requirement is there, is 18 months for the Barolo and 9 months for the Barbaresco, but the time it will stay in the winery is different. So prior to release, it has to stay for 60 months versus 30 months.
Is Busia considered a Reserva, or is it just a Barolo single vineyard? Because I know we're tasting the 15, which I believe is the current vintage.
Yes, so the Busia, it's a Barolo single vineyard, which I always joke and say, you see, the Italians like to talk because the French expressed the idea of cru with 3 letters. It took Italian 3 words: menzione geografica aggiuntiva. So technically, Busia is a menzione geografica aggiuntiva, so a specific geographical designation which is binding by law. So you can only produce wines labeled Busia if you own label, or if you buy grapes from the Busia area. We also produce a Busia Riserva, which is also a Vigna Colonnello. So they say there was this colonel from the Napoleonic army that retrieving from war settled there. And that is a Vigna Colonnello. So when you say Vigna, you have to cut down production by 10%, so even lower yields. And it is a Riserva. So it is only released after 5 years.
So total 50 hectares, or approximately 124 acres that are under your stewardship, and that's a sizable amount and good for worldwide production. Do you have any idea of the total production?
The total production of Barolo average is around 12-13 million bottles. While Barbaresco is around 3 to 4 million bottles. So normally Barbaresco is 1/3 Barolo. They grew in the last 20 years, but they still keep the relationship quite constant. So Barolo is definitely bigger, and that's also the reason why most of the time Barolo is well known around the world, while Barbaresco, it's always a little bit the Cinderella of the Langhe, but not for the quality. The quality is as high as the one of Barolo. It's just that as being smaller, it doesn't. So sometimes it's just less known.
right. A couple of the winemaking personalities.
Yes, Gianluca Torrengo, the one in the lower picture, is with us since 1999. So definitely he knows his stuff now. He's one of the, he always say, I'm one of the few winemakers that still walk in the vineyard every day at harvest time. So he goes there, check the grape, sort of really see what's happening in the vineyard, and then decide when to pick. So he's not only winemaker, but also works in strict contact with the agronomist, and this is a mantra that you probably heard many times. But he's a strong believer that in order to make great wines, you need to start from very healthy and good quality grape. So that's his mantra, and of course the supervision is from Renzo Cottarella, which is the chief enologist, chief winemaker from the Antinori company, which of course it's in strict, they work really side by side in deciding the strategy, the direction, acquisitions for Barolo. And you saw before some of the smaller casks, the barriques, which are used for Barbera. So today for Barbera, we use small barrels and big barrels, but especially for Nizza, we use small barrels. While for Nebbiolo, in the historical winery of Alba and in the winery in Monforte, we only use large vats, large casks, the traditional botti, mainly in French oak, Allier, but a small percentage from Slavonian oak as well. So in order to try to have different kind of oak. Okay.
So one of the wines we're going to taste today with the local team, is Arnese. And there are a lot of very unique grape varieties in the Piedmont area. Arnese is particularly important to those that make Barolo. And it tends to kind of coexist in the same areas. Huh?
Arnese is a grape varietal that, as Lange and Roero are famous for making great reds. I always, the expectation sometimes is, is Arnese a great red, a great white, as much as it is, in Burgundy, the Chardonnay versus the Pinot Noir. And I always say, not quite, but Arnese is the perfect aperitif wine. So if you're looking for power, complexity, aging potential, then no. Arnese, it's not a motorbike. You don't need the helmet. It doesn't. You don't need gasoline. You cannot speed 100 miles an hour on the motorway. But it's a nice bicycle. Very elegant, very bright, very floral character. Beautiful perfumes. Very floral perfumes produced normally on sandy soils. That's where it produced the best results. And then it has quite a low acidity. So it's a perfect aperitif. You can drink it on its own, of course, with food also, with the traditional antipasti from Piemonte. It works absolutely well, but you can really drink it on its own. And as it is a lighter styled wine, absolutely is a wine that's the only problem for Arnese is that the bottle is empty too early. You need to order a next bottle. But Arnese, it's definitely the white wine from Lange and Roero, and it really is the other sort of expression of this region, which is not tannins, power, aging complexity, but it's like a denser, so much lighter, much sort of delicate, but delivering also the complexity and in a way expressing the same unique expression of the microclimate because of that excursion between night and day temperature. The same applies for Arnese.
And this 2020 Arnese literally just arrived, so we were one of the first to get the 2020, and by the time this Zoom occurs at the end of November. We got the Arnés like the first day or two of November, so it's fresh and as it should be. A really clean and beautifully aromatic white wine. I'm sure you're going to love it. It's pretty limited. It'll come and go fairly quickly, but really popular with the great Italian restaurants here in Los Angeles. We are very fortunate to be able to taste two amazing vintages back to back, the 15 and the 16. You could probably go back in history and find other back-to-back very good vintages, but few will be as highly regarded as 15 and 16. And it's really amazing how these wines just are magnificent, even enjoyed early. They really kind of reward bad behavior, because we like to talk about drinking Barolos as they approach 10 years old, but you'll really see some pleasure in both of these wines. And a lot of Barolo producers are now selling the 17s, and I'm sure you guys will be too soon, but there's a really nice patience exercised here. So we're able to taste the 16 Barolo and the 15 Busia.
Well, 16 Barolo, in 2016, and much have been said. It's really one of the best vintage in Langhe in the last 20 years. The grapes were absolutely very high quality, very healthy. There is very high quality perfumes, balanced body, and great aging potential. So really, it has everything to be a great vintage for Barolo. The winemaker, when he was harvesting and started fermentation, he told me, in 25 years I never saw Nebbiolo with so much intensity in the color during fermentation. And when I'm asked which is the most important wine for Pronotto, sometimes I sort of skip the temptation to say it's the Barolo Busia, which was the first single vineyard, or the Barolo Vigna Colonnello, which is a single vineyard Barolo Busia, to say it's the Barolo Classico, because while Barolo Busia and Vigna Colonnello, they express the unique magic of the soil they are grown onto, for Barolo, the Barolo Classico always respects the vintage, but it's every year the winemaker job to really sort of blend the different grapes coming from different Barolo Council, and to recreate every year the Pronotto style. So I think it is very important, because it really expresses the style of Pronotto. And if we go back to the map that we were looking for, here you see all the different soil, and the Barolo Classico, I always try to express it. It's like a quartet of instrument, or like an orchestra. In an orchestra, you have different instruments. Some of them you can play on its own, and that would be a single vineyard. Some of them, like double bass, you don't want to listen an hour playing double bass. It could be a little bit boring. So some of the vineyards can be maybe a little bit too tannic, some other very perfumed, but they lack the body, richness, the depth. So, but when they play together, then you create a beautiful harmony. And that's the idea of the Barolo Classico, a Barolo that you can drink young, but it can age beautifully and gracefully for many years. The Barolo Classico, it's produced with this idea in mind. Grapes come from 100% Nebbiolo, come from Monforte, Serralunga, and Castiglionfalletto, and different aspect too. Some come from south-facing slopes, some come from east, some come from west, and everything in between. So really, it shows how the idea, which was the traditional idea of the producer 100 years ago, to produce Barolo by blending different areas, is still absolutely a good idea today to make a very balanced wine. And then, of course, the single vineyard, so the Busia, which is the next wine. Here you really have the A solo, the pure expression of just one single site. Lucia can be considered one of the Grand Cru from the Barolo appellation. It's produced, and it was chosen, as I said at the beginning, because it's in the middle of the Barolo appellation. So it expresses the two souls of Barolo: finesse, the elegance, but also power and the weight. In the past, probably you heard it many times talking about Burgundy as well. To express in a few words what is Barolo is the iron fist in the velvet glove. So you have a lot of power, tannins that will allow this wine to age for a long time, but also very, very expressing a lot of finesse, a lot of elegance, all the floral character of Nebbiolo, the roses, the violets, and if it's fruit, is pomegranate, orange peel, blood orange sometimes in certain warmer vintages. So you really get a lot of complexity, but at the end, a wine that keeps the elegance and the finesse in every vintage. So that's the reason why it was chosen. It's a beautiful amphitheater, as you saw the picture before. So that gives you the possibility to pick grapes at different times. So from the first to the last grape, normally it takes between 1 week to 10 days. So you, from just one side, you pick the different grapes, you ferment it at in different vats, and then you blend it together. So the idea is from just one side to recreate that aroma, and with the unique character, the unique spirits of Lucia.
Fantastic. And I'll provide access to all the tools here for everyone on the Zoom. If you want to visit some of the websites and get some more content and information, you can visit any of these, and they're all available on the internet through the Antinori websites. Manuel, thank you so much. It's been such a wonderful tour, and we've learned so much about Barolo, the region,
Thank you,
the
Manuel.
winery, the history, and I really appreciate that. And we thank you, and I hope to be able to visit you on an upcoming trip to Barolo, and to thank you for your time.
Yeah, and thank you very much for organizing this tasting, and I'm looking forward to see you in Piemonte anytime soon. And of course, if the people who's listening want to know more, they are absolutely more than welcome to come and visit us at the winery in Lucia. And at the end, that's the very best way to learn it and to make sense of the sometimes complex geological area of Barolo.
I can't recommend it enough. It's a magical place, and if you've never been to Barolo, maybe you've been to Italy before, but if you haven't been to Barolo, you haven't seen anything yet. It's just such a magic spot. It's a really important place to travel to understand these great wines and to get something very unique in the world of wine. Mr. Baldi, thank you for your time, and it's been a wonderful pleasure to tour Barolo with you and with Pronto.
Mr. Blackburn, thank you very much.
Have a good day, sir.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bravo, Silvio. Manuel Baldi. He did a wonderful job of making that educationally deep and dense, and really getting past just the average speak about Barolo. I moved into wine number 2. I'd like everyone to taste with us if you haven't already finished your number 2. But gone. We'll get it for you right away. But the wine number 2 is showing so well. 16, such a great vintage, Silvio.
Yeah, 16, as our friend Emanuele pointed out, is considered a classic vintage. That means that everything was exactly in place where it was supposed to happen. So you want rain in the spring to, feed the vine, and water the vine throughout the summer. You want to have a very dry harvest time. Obviously, the rains, which are very common in Piedmont, being in northern Italy, they can dilute the grapes very much. And one of the things that I also would like to stress is that because the Nebbiolo is a very light ripening grape, you always encounter the risk of having issues with harvest. So it's much more difficult to harvest in Piedmont as opposed to, let's say, Sicily, which is, by the way, at the same latitude Napa Valley, because you have a very consistent weather. You know, it's always very warm, so you don't really encounter any problem with the rains. Whereas in Piedmont, because of the fact that you have the cold weather coming from Northern Europe and the Mediterranean weather coming from the Gulf of Liguria, you always have these very random weather patterns. And for all of us who live in Southern California along the coast, I assume most of you are familiar with the weather in Santa Monica. In the morning can be very cloudy. You drive 10 miles inland towards Tarzana, let's say, and then all of a sudden it's very warm. So it's the same effect that happens on the vineyards of Barolo. So it's a very, very random, almost a gamble that every winemaker takes when to harvest, because obviously it's very hard to predict what the next day is going to be. And that's also the reason why Barolo is very vintage oriented. And it's also the reason why Barolo is so expensive, because obviously to make a good wine, you need to work very hard in the vineyard, especially in the bad vintages. The other thing is that Nebbiolo is philosophically speaking very close to Pinot Noir. In other words, it's very sensitive to soil. And that's the reason why you can only produce a great Barolo in Barolo. You cannot produce a great Barolo, let's say, near Rome or in California. That's because the soil and the climate in Barolo is unique. You cannot replicate that. And is a grape that is extremely delicate. Therefore, it needs a lot of care. Yes.
Most people finish wine number 2, so I want to get into number 3 before hour
All right.
2.
So let's. I want to point out also the difference. More than point out to stress the difference between the classical Barolo, which is basically the result of blends of different vineyards, which is trying really to make the best out of the vintage, whereas Busia, being a single vineyard, is really the expression of the vineyard in a specific area. Now, one thing that would help everybody to understand the idea of geology in Barolo and the fact it's so different is because along the millions of years, there were different stratas of different kind of geological material that collected on top of each other. And what happens is, like a tower, eventually this tower collapsed on its own, and it created all these different layers across the Barolo area of different kind of soil. So that's why, for most part, the Barolo is always been blended vineyard to vineyards, because each vintage would produce a completely different Nebbiolo expression.
So let's talk about what's in the glass, Silvio. You have the wine. Number 2 is the classic expression, roses and tar and roses, right?
Well, when you talk about Barolo, I have to say that the most used term to describe Barolo, and this is actually the point of reference for any sommelier who does the blind tasting for their exams, is violet. So this is probably the main trait of any Barolo wine. And one of the things that I encourage everybody to focus on is really the smell of the wine. We say that we don't drink Barolo, we smell Barolo. Barolo is a wine that, unlike any other wine, is more appreciated with the nose than with the mouth. So what I'm trying to say here is that the complexity and the layers in the nose are so unique to Barolo that you cannot really have replicate this experience from any other grape from any other part of the world. In fact,
my mouth appreciated every drop.
I bet it did.
It was beautiful, Silvio, and I think quite accessible 16, youthful, but really enjoyable already. And that's also kind of a hallmark of a great vintage too, is that there is kind of a two wines in one. The wine that we get to drink now and the wine that we will discover in another 10 years. Because there's something underneath this thing. There's a lot of grit and a lot of elegance. And I will say, generically, what I love about Pronotto is that it's not trying to be Napa Valley Cabernet. It is absolutely beautiful Barolo in a classic format. It's not using the most modern, overripe, hyper extraction. This is so elegant and so pretty, but also it's got that fist in the what's that cliche? The velvet glove, you know? It's
And the
definitely
iron
got
fist.
in there. Yeah, the iron fist. Yes. What do you think, Van? Do you like that?
I don't know if it's a reference to Australia, but at the end of the day, Barolo is kind of its own animal, and every time I drink it, I find something I didn't find there before. Delicacy compared to something like Burgundy, to me, is something I wouldn't have thought of at first, but now that I drink this particular product, it's like, oh, I can see that. It's a thumper that Barolo is typically known, especially what was the 61 that I brought to you, Ian, the first time that we met? Like,
yeah,
these things last for ages, and yet there's a certain property to them that begs your respect in a more soft environment. I don't know. This one kind of splits the edges for me.
Cool. Well, it is absolutely comparable.
But it's wonderful.
Comparable to Burgundy is an understatement. This not only was Piedmont ruled by the Dukes of Burgundy for a long period of time, but both Piedmont and Burgundy have that same geological kind of tower of soil types that tipped over on their side, and they used the hillsides, and the monks planted the vineyards that melted where the snow melted first, and all that stuff. It's all like the same mentality that established Burgundy. I'm going to move now into the wine 3 because I think that's where most people are drinking the Busia, and I really want to wax poetic about this for a minute, but we do have to be careful on our time because we are going well over our hour target. But let's get into the glass with Busia. And Tiffany, I hope you guys are both enjoying Busia. Yeah? All right. Teresa, how did the 2 versus 3 treat you?
I like 3 better. I like 3. To me, it was a little lighter, and I guess I'm not a big red drinker, so. Yeah.
Maybe the fact that it's got a year longer. I'm not sure I would call it lighter. It's just got like different.
Maybe.
The 16's like jazz, and this is like classic piano or something like that. It's like they are different wines, different vintages, but
I guess less edge on it, maybe.
Yeah, and that year is important. There was a lot of green tones in the 16. Very firm, very youthful, like slightly underripe, but lots of pretty elegance on top of that you allow you to drink it right now. Whereas the 15 has definitely got more bass and opened up a little bit more. Silvio, what are you finding in there, buddy?
I usually think the Busia tends to deviate a little bit from the typical notes of violets, and you start to get a more ripe red fruit, almost bordering to black fruit, so more concentration. I think I tend to agree with Emanuele by saying that the Busia is a wine on its own. It's not a classic Barolo, because when you talk about classic Barolo, you talk about all the features that characterize classic Barolo we just talked about. Here is really the expression of the vineyard. You cannot replicate. It's very hard for someone like me that does not have the experience of Barolo wines that, let's say, Emanuele has. So it's very difficult for me to maybe compare. Yeah, you know, you need really to have a contest of different sites and be able to have these wines in front of you from different vineyards. But usually single vineyards in Barolo, I found them to be obviously more concentrated. They tend to have a long lifespan. What I also suggest all of you guys, that is the trick I always use when I drink a Barolo, is that the first you have to start with the knowledge that Barolo is an experience. It's not drinking a wine; it's really an experience of all senses, starting from the nose and the mouth. A lot of Barolo drinkers, which we call them Barolista, like to hear music when they drink Barolo. And so you have the senses, the ear senses that combine with the nose and the mouth. So what you want to do is to put a bottle of Barolo in the fridge after the first glass, and then drink another glass the next day, and another glass the next day. And by the end of the week, you probably finish the bottle, but you're gonna go through a complete roller coaster of a different sensation. And it's one of the most unique experiences. That's why in Italy, we say there are two kinds of people. People drink wine and people drink Barolo. And people drink Barolo, don't drink any other wine. So it's a cult wine. It's one of those wines that, as Van mentioned, requires a completely different approach. I always approach Barolo with a lot of humility, because Barolo, and I don't want to make it scary to you guys, because obviously wine, especially Italian wines, needs to be enjoyed with friends and as a fun. It needs to be a fun experience and not an intimidating experience. But me personally, I always found Barolo to be very difficult to understand, because sometimes you find that maybe does not reward you immediately, but as I said, throughout the week you start getting different layers, different flavors. So it's an experience that requires a lot of time, let's put it this way. It's not like drinking a Cabernet or a Chianti Classico, you know. It's a wine that requires some I would say some patience.
Question from the audience there, Silvio, about pesticides. What's the current thought about herbicides, pesticides in Barolo? Are we looking at?
Well, I have to say that now we have to abide to the European regulations, which are one of the most strictest in the world. You cannot really use herbicide or pesticides that much. In fact, over the past 20 years, winemakers in Europe in general and in Italy specifically have understood that if you treat the vine correctly, the vine will respond to problems and extreme weathers and attacks from pests and things like that. So at the end of the day, the more properly you treat the vine, the better results you will get from the vines, and the least amount of additional products you will need to protect the vine, because the vine will become strong on its own, and you know it will get into in a symbiotic fashion with the environment, and it will react to all the attacks that comes from, as I said, from the weather, from pests and molds and so forth.
Right. Just so everybody knows, and I apologize if we had any sound difficulties with the video, but I did put the video link on the chat box if you want to rewatch that at some point in time. It's also available on our Learn About Wine page on YouTube, and we have the Zoom Into Wine Facebook page, which will be actually you can go back and watch yourself on that Zoom into Wine. This video is being recorded there now and should be available for immediate consumption whenever you want to go back and watch that again. But just if you had any parts that you couldn't hear, the YouTube video should respond a little bit better on your going directly there instead of being embedded into Zoom. Silvio, I want to thank you very much for talking with us about Barolo. Does anybody have any questions for Silvio about Barolo?
I just wanted to tell Silvio thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I mean, it's not every day that I get a chance to talk to someone that's that dialed in. And Ian, thank you for making those sorts of experiences happen. And you know, we learn something every time, and we push the wines that we believe in, and this is certainly one of them. I mean, Barolo has been one of my favorite regions for many years, and so it's a real treat for me.
And then make sure you invite me next time you bring a 61.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, Van likes to drink some winners, Ben. I want to enter into our merchant wine site just a couple of things. These wines are very popular, and both we have plenty of Arnais, and it's at a great price. If you want to find the wines easily tonight, you can go to the Zoom into Wine page, and let's hope the link is still there. Yes, and we can go in there. There's a little discount code that I sent you on the email. And if you want to just find the wines easily, you can use this as your way of going there. But on our page, it's also easy to go here to that Q in the corner, which is the sort or search, and just put in Pronoto, 2 T's, right? Pronoto, and there you go. And you can find them all. We're looking at $24, $65, $110, and you get the discount off of those prices. The bad news is that these wines were available about 30, 45 days ago, made available, and the wine industry has gone in and sucked them all up. I personally only have about 7 bottles of each of the Barolos, the Lucia, and the regular Barolo available. Like I said, the Arnais were in pretty good shape. I'm not sure how the distributor is. Do you have any more of these coming in, or are they going to be 17 Barolo and 16 Lucia?
They're only in Long Beach again, waiting to be downloaded sometime in the next 10 years, I guess.
So they're sitting on a container ship, and we'll drink them when they get here. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we're at with a lot of wines, by the way. I have a lot of, I have more wines on the site than I've ever had, but I have bottles, not cases, because that's the way the wine industry is working. So I went and took our idea of having very few wines and taking a pretty good inventory on them to a lot of wines with a very small inventory on each one, because that's what we get to do at this time in the world. So it's kind of a different idea, but never had more or better wines on our website. We're continuing to try to improve the merchant wine, and we're working very hard to create some fantastic content on Zoom. So I hope all of you will continue to come back and join us. Fantastic friend of mine, sommelier, awesome Zoom hostess, Dana Farner, really a great sommelier. She's going to be hosting a Pinot Noir discussion next Wednesday, Old World versus New, Oregon versus Burgundy, and it's going to be awesome. That's December 1st. December 8th, Los Angeles legend Matthew Keener, who is quite the wine bar guru, but now is doing Somm TV. It's a thing. There's a whole channel called Somm TV, and he is a big star on that show. And he's going to be hosting a Zoom on these wines that are quite interesting. They're not actually wine. They are non-alcoholic alternatives. And he got involved because he's a big thinker. And these things are really cool. They're made with vinegars and food ingredients. And they do have a shelf life. They're only good for about 6 months, but they're really interesting. They're called proxies, and they're being launched. It's a Canadian family that's making them, and Matthew's going to introduce them on Zoom into Wine on the 8th. So if you take January off of alcohol, maybe proxies can help make life more interesting. But for me personally, it's just really cool to introduce something like that in a really cool meal with a multiple course. You could even have a non-alcoholic course and be really cool. And not every day you need to have alcohol, like at least you may want it, but it's maybe not every day that you need to have it. And this is just a really fun culinary way of thinking about an alternative beverage. So Matthew is awesome. You're going to love him. I've known him for a long time, and it's going to be a really fun Zoom on December 8th. On the 15th, a legend from California, Paul Hobbs, will be hosting our Zoom. And Paul Hobbs, if you've never heard of him, every time someone talks about California wine, they start exploring where the ideas came from and where things happen. It was a lot of things. Paul Hobbs runs right through the conversation. He is so innovative and so important to the history of California wine and to the future. He has polished up his wine lineup, and he's going to be showing off a couple of really cool wines. One is from where are we at? We've got Irani from, where's that? Irani, where's that from? I'm spacing on it. You gotta look. Bring up the page. You've got to. I haven't ever even talked to him in person yet, but I'll be able to speak to him that night. And his Irani just won the top 100 wines in the world in the Wine Enthusiast, and it's going to be already planned for our show. This is Armenian mountain wine, planted at 5,000 feet in elevation, and they planted these vineyards back 6,000 years ago. It's like the origins of wine, and he and his family got involved in rehabilitating the site that was planted thousands of years ago. And so we're going to be able to taste that wine with him. We're going to be able to taste his world famous Pinot Noir from the Russia River, and also a Gadelo that he makes in Spain. And he is quite the source of revolutionary thinking. I mean, there's a reason why they make Malbec in Argentina, and a lot of it is Paul Hobbs, and he owns Los Cobos in Argentina. I'm sure we're going to talk about that too, but he is just an incredibly important figure. So a lot going on at Zoom Into Wine, and I thank you guys for joining us tonight. We hope you had a really good time. Silvio, thank you, and thanks to the Antinori family for all the hospitality. One of you will win a special decanter that they sent to us to give to our guests on the show. I will pick that and reward that later in the month, but you will have to be patient with me. I'm going to get that to you later this month. As I leave for Italy tomorrow, I'll be back on the 12th, and I'll be in contact with you when I put my hands on that decanter, and we're going to do a little name in the hat, and we'll pull one out. Somebody who bought a ticket to join us tonight for Zoom will win that decanter, and it'll be a nice upside surprise. Not based on sales or anything like that, but if you do want to buy some Antinori wines from us, anybody that does, we have a Antinori wine key, wine opener that we'll include as a thank you for purchasing a bottle of Barolo from us and or Arnes. So Silvio, you're awesome for doing this and for getting the team involved. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Travel safe, Ian. Have a great
Everyone. Ian, thank you, Sylvia. Dude, you're a baller. It's
All right,
always good to
guys.
meet another one.
Let's talk soon.
You're the man.
Everyone, happy Thanksgiving.
Instagram and Facebook, I'll be
It's a
posting
Barolo.
a lot of food porn coming out of Italy very soon. Just look at my Instagram and Facebook. I'll be posting photos like crazy. Ian Blackburn presents.
It's beautiful there. Have fun.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Hell yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving, Renata. Renata, you and your group. Thank you. Cheers. Beauty.
We still have more. That's the good news.
Yeah, that's the good news, Lynn. Thank you very much.
This is no more bad news.
And we're not driving home. That's the better news.
Hi, friends. Hi. How are you? We're drinking so much.
Yo.
We love the 2016 bottle.
Oh, me too. Beauty.
Yeah, I weirdly liked it more than the 2015. I found it more aromatic and just a bigger flavor in my mouth.
Very nice. It's definitely a different angle to the Busia, and it touches different parts of the palate and feels different. But the high tones of the 16 Barolo to me were really
16's insane.
really good. Yeah, and it's called the greatest vintage of all time for a reason. 16.
Wow. So you have 7 bottles left? Is that what we heard?
I have 7 of each. That's it.
Wow.
Not for all.
No.
Are you trying to create a competitive environment, Ian, again?
Yeah, the 16s, we need to go online and get them right now.
Grab them.
Bring
Thank
it.
you, guys. Thank you all.
All right.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Love you, Ian.
Love to the family.
Love you too,
Cheers.
brother. Talk to you
Cheers,
soon.
everybody.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Shave that truffle all over the place tomorrow.
You'll know. You'll know.
Here's that shuffle.